All right. Welcome to Freeing All Minds equals Freeing Your Mind with Abra Abrahanu and special guest Michael Matucci. Today's show will be discussing on what Mike is up to and what he's working on. He has a couple YouTube channels out. One is called System Busters, and another is just a personal YouTube page. I also have two YouTube pages as well as my website, wholereflections.com. So today's topics are indigenous wisdom, a little bit on Michael's background, and also just some stuff that's been coming up for me that I can share. And it's a lot of transformative energies have been coming up. Seeing here, he's trying to get into the chat. Oh, I'm letting him pop in. Cool. Yo. So yeah, we've gone live, and I'm waiting on Mike to get into the stream. What's up, Wes?
What's up, man?
So okay, he said he's looking to test before we start. Let me just let him reassure him. Good stream. Blink. Yeah, Google Hangouts is offering this great tool right now. I mean, this is really amazing. I just we met at a festival, and we have come to understanding. We both have YouTube channels and amazing content that is kind of sitting in a space, in a dormant space, and so we're just at the point of coming together and having this talk here. Just waiting for him to get on.
Okay.
Yeah, and usually I would just get on here and I would just read some high frequency material. Like recently, I just read the alchemical writing of Thoth, the Emerald Tablet, and I had some books by Stuart Wilde. I read a book by Stuart Wilde called Affirmation, which was powerful.
Have you ever looked into? I think Andrew mentioned it during Galactic History, the Explorer Race series by Robert Shapiro.
I have never heard. I remember him. Yeah, I remember him bringing that up. Did you look into?
He brings it up in like part 6. And I went out and I got 3 or 4 of the books. I just finished the first one, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's at the same level that Andrew talks at, and it was written in published in 94. So it was right at the front end of the consciousness wave.
When in 94, you said?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I remember him bringing it up.
The channeling goes back from 89 to 94, and then that's about when the first one was published. And he's written updates, and he's kept up with his links, and so I'm excited to see where the series goes. But it's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, I noticed when you get books that are as high frequency as your radar can pick up, at least it brings in a lot of your own frequency into the world. If I just from the 220 or 240 something videos that I've released, you get to constantly ring your message out of who you are and what you're here for. And I think that might be Mike.
Yep, I'm here.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Oh, just figuring out how to set up yet another beautiful application.
Right, yeah. So I've got my friend Wesley here, and we're just waiting for you, brother. And we're just getting ready to go in into heart space centeredness and service, and also as well as Indigenous Wisdom with Michael Matucci of. Do you have a website?
I do. It's michaelmatucci.com. That's Matucci.
Great. So, what's your background? What inspired you to look into the research that you've done? And I see that it's a massive amount of work, and there's even more under the proverbial ice cap.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I would say that I've been an avid learner, researcher, practicer, explorer, seeker my whole life. And I've lived in 6 continents, speak 5 languages, and I've worked in fashion and business and done some stuff in the arts. And this is sort of a natural progression. I was filmmaking. I was in LA and making films, making conscious fiction films, and um, growing that part of my life as a director. And I had been an actor for a while, and also teaching leadership and management on the corporate level. And an opportunity arose to grab the proverbial story of a lifetime when I met someone in Bali, and she told me about it. A couple different tribes in a couple different countries that were having a similar problem around nuclear dumping on their area and uranium mining and infighting and theft, and the government seemed to be involved somehow. It was pretty juicy, and so. But when I got on Skype to speak with one of the people involved, it became real. It's different than just hearing about a story and writing it or taking it from a book. When you actually speak to somebody who's in the midst of such challenge and speaking up for her people and getting slammed down, it kind of changes your perspective. So I thought, well, it's going to take me years to make a film out of this or a series. So why don't I just go down there for a week? She had invited me to a few events and just meet some people, do some interviews, and make a short video, a small internet video. And the rest is history, man. 6 months on the road in Australia, New Zealand, and Standing Rock here in the US, and filmed over 100 people, met hundreds and hundreds more environmentalists, activists, elders, scholars, high level analysts, people on the street, and started to put together the foundation for what is now a potential docu-series or perhaps a mini-series, mini movie series that really reframes the whole topic of colonization and what it is, and it's not a time period where a bunch of Europeans went and set up shop in different countries. It's actually a mindset of acquiring profit and power by controlling people, and it's very much in use today. So all of that time out there with the indigenous people and brought me to understand um, how things are actually going on in the world today for all of us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is spectacular. I've been to other continents as well, and I wanted to ask you about how the different cultures and the different languages really affects your everyday set point. It's like we're at a set point that's limited to our local area. Did you notice that when making the move out to the indigenous areas as opposed to just going to the city of Australia, did you feel a little pushback?
Well, I think you have a couple questions there. I'll try to hit the first one because I think it's very important. Probably the number one thing that anyone can do to expand his or her horizons, um, understanding of people, their humility, and their perspective is to live and work in a different country and attempt to learn the language and collaborate with the people who are there. I left the U.S. Right after college, and I was, big man on campus, and it came out with multiple awards, and had this great job, and dating, beautiful women, and setting up my career, and thinking I'm this amazing badass. And then I arrived in London and got in with a certain crowd who quickly showed me how not worldly I was, and how little perspective I had, how little culture that I had, not because America didn't have that, but because America is one place in a very big world. And we, especially in big countries, but even in little countries, you get a lot of tunnel vision and this understanding or perspective
Yeah.
that everything is what we think it is, when it's quite the opposite. So that was the first step on many steps. And so I think that moving forward towards my indigenous experience, I would say that having lived in many countries and understood many people, being blessed to have understood a dichotomy of different people in within those countries, and understanding left brain people and right brain people. And I'm kind of a bridge builder. So for me, it was probably easier than most, but without a doubt, there is a huge mistrust for people who are white, who are Western, especially somebody with a camera in hand who says he wants to, take pictures or do video. But I
Right.
feel like the place that I was in and the place that I am in, I was able to connect with people and show them that I was there for them, and I was there to empower them, and I was there to get their to magnify or to accelerate their voice. And so we built bridges pretty fast. We came together pretty fast, and I have a lot of really wonderful friends now, and a lot of great invitations to go out there. But let me tell you for sure, there is certainly a large distrust out there with the people, and for
Yeah,
good reason.
I've seen that, it's a distrust that goes away when you make that contact, and you know show that you're real, and that you're not just gonna glaze over. Like, I've been to London a couple times where it's just like the people are just like bouncing off of each other and acting like as if they don't exist, like warm bodies in a subway. Yeah, these people are some of the most wealthy people in the world. And um, when you're in the indigenous world, they want you to sit down, to slow down, and if you can't sit down and slow down, they look at you funny. And that's kind of where that mistrust comes from. Even for me as an African going to Africa, I've had that scenario too. As soon as they hear that I can't speak the language, or that I speak the language funny, I went to Ethiopia and Eritrea, on the Horn of Africa, and I also, what other countries were there? Oh, those are pretty much the most. Yeah, those are the countries where this would apply. But um, and they would, even though that's where my parents are from, and I was born in America. Like, they still know that I was born there, and there's still a mistrust there, of even if you're just you know born in America, regardless of your race. So that's what I meant by pushback. I've definitely
Mhm.
felt it myself, and I've got footage on my YouTube channel where I'm actually in Africa, and I'm going to these. I feel like there are pyramids all across the Horn of Africa where my grandparents were and
Mhm.
stuff are from. And I actually went in 2016 in front of a huge conference, and told, are you familiar with Sam Asmonagich? He found the research on the Turkish pyramid finding. It's like under all
Mm.
this foliage.
No.
Sam Osmanagic, I believe that's how you pronounce it. And I spoke with him at a. I didn't even know who he was until I showed up to the conference, and yeah, I told him about it, and I sent him the pictures, and of all the pictures that I took in 2016, and that was like in March of 2016, and I sent him the pictures in May. And it's interesting. I think I have, and this guy, he's done deep work, and he's like really stayed on the path. And it's just interesting seeing that I have this whole area here that I can kind of discover if allowed to, without. But you know, some areas obviously have more pushback than others. It took me 2 months to get a visa to get there. Um, so then I guess, yeah, we can move on to like heart-centered service. You know, like how do we break those bonds? And with the heart-centered service, how do we prove that, or not prove, but how do we, you know, show up in any situation and stay heart-centered despite, and just work with what we have and create? You know, how would you go forward with that?
Well, I'd first preface it by saying that my interpretation, I feel many people also feel this way, is that service is sort of something extra. It's sort of something when you have a little bit of bonus time or a little bit of extra money, and we just sort of throw it in, or when we've already accomplished what it is we're set to do, and then we can help others or serve others. And I did a lot of different volunteer stuff, but I always saw it as external to me and just something extra. And I enjoyed it and I learned from it. So it's not that I didn't have a good experience with it. But when we actually fully step into heart-centered service, meaning you're doing it for others, really, and you're doing it with joy, and you're doing it with love. You're putting the benefit of the collective out there, and you put your whole self into it, not just dipping one toe in. It is a monumentally different experience, and one that, instead of being an afterthought, instead of being an extra or an icing or a detail of the car, it becomes the engine itself that drives you to locations both inside of your own soul and on the outside, which you never knew you could get to. It is an expansion. It's a motor for expansion, and a motor for an adventure beyond your comprehension. And it certainly has been for me, and changed my entire life. And when I decided, in the moment that I knew, only a few weeks after being in my first stop in Australia, and I realized, wow, nothing else really matters. This is what I'm here to do. And I stepped fully into service and let go of my financial security and my social life back in LA and everything else. And I just said, let's just do this.
Right.
And then that's really where the adventure began. And as far as the how the service takes place in a heart-centered way, that's also it's similar but different. And I can use an example from the front lines. When I was in Standing Rock, you're now in a place where the activism is at a peak. You are in a militarized zone where there's a lot of frustration, anger, there is stress, there are helicopters flying around constantly, and little planes flying over, and cops on the hill spying, and perhaps with scopes pointed at you, and never mind all the stuff on the actual actions themselves by the pipelines. And people are, very much in a space of being upset, and, in your mind, and justice, and fighting back, and being in a heart-centered place, and actually loving the person on the other side of that shield, actually being compassionate for the government officials who are lying about what's happening in the news that's not coming, and lying by omission, is where the work really gets interesting.
But now we have sorry if I just want to bring this up. Now we have this Houston scenario, and it's like we can't ignore that. That has. I mean, there's no way that's a false flag, and we have to. And like, if we don't have, how can we counter when things we really actually do need some form of, regional or grander media service, and then the ones that, of course, they're only going to show the pessimistic side. There's probably been things that they can do, that are better, but when it's intermeshed like that, when it's intermeshed with crazy events like what happened in Houston recently, it's really hard to have. It's really easy to look back at an event like Standing Rock with with like, just from a perspective of someone who's just a regular news watcher of, oh, those hippies are just, getting in the way. They're not really trying to do anything. Because when they see local authorities, the same ones that were stomping out people and throwing, bombs basically at protesters, are the same ones that are in Houston with a motorboat going in the middle of the craziest thing since Katrina hit. And so you have this craziness that's happening. It's just, have you felt the essence of it just being completely an open world, like in a sense that there's no, it's very much so just a point of, like how we were speaking about on the lake or on the river, you're just clearing out what you know and then receiving what's new and what's present.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We that's why you made a perfect analogy. You know, the police are doing one thing in one area and one thing in someone else, which is exactly, it's showing that these situations are never, how can we judge? We really don't, we really don't know what these people are like, and assuming that this is what they're like and then categorizing everybody as something else. It hopefully will engender people to a greater sense of compassion and to see that not everything is one way or the other, dark or light. Everyone's got a combination within them. And one day somebody, could be persecuting you, and the next day they could be reaching out a hand to save you. So I would hope that, again, that we don't get caught up in the fear of it, and which is easy, because that's what's going to get the headlines. That's what they just play the same clips over and over and over. So you have this drummed into you. But like in Standing Rock, what I saw was a unity camp. Now, you don't see that in anybody stressing that in any videos, and including the videos of the people who are indigenous and people who are making stuff. Now, I might have missed something, so I don't want to speak totally out of turn, but the ones that have gotten greater popularity, let's put it that way, that are circulated more, are the heavy frontline craziness, and that's the same down in Houston. What's the people getting swept away by the water? But what you're not seeing is us coming together. And in my opinion, that these are all signs for us to realize our power, to come together as a community, to realize that we are ultimately interdependent on one another, and that we will change this world when we come together. And hopefully we don't need more tragedy. We can start coming together before things happen. But until we do, we're going to continue to get signs showing us what direction to go in.
Yeah, that's definitely Earth's will coming to the forefront. I totally 100% agree. I mean, at least there was a warning and people could get out, but it's just an interesting dynamic. You'll things could easily be getting changed from the inside out without warning as well. So that's something that requires, putting the ear to the ground in the local communities and making sure that, you're going through changes and other people are going through changes, and you're seeing that, that, like we said before, the heart-centered service, that being the driver, and can't have the right foot not knowing what the left foot's up to, and that's pretty key right now. I find that it's just, I try to avoid the news as much as possible, but to be honest, if I wasn't around other people, I wouldn't know about what was going on in Houston. I really wouldn't have known about it unless, I got off social media. I got off Facebook as well, which is pretty much, I'm going to count that as mainstream media at this point. They'll just blast. They'll just put it under your status bar. They'll just put some information under your status bar about what's happening in the White House and stuff like that.
Right. Well, I feel like there are two responses that you kind of mentioned both of them within that commentary, and that's what's happening. There's three responses of what's happening to calamity that's happening today, and one is the screaming about it, complaining about it, blaming people, and the sort of angry armchair activism and in-person activism too, that is seemingly not helping us progress the larger situation. The second is what you say about the total takeoff, and I'm all for restricting the amount of hours I spend in front of any screen, but there's a difference between just withdrawing from social media and TV and withdrawing. And I feel like what I've seen a lot is people just, and I know folks who seeing what's going on in the world and the potential for where things are going and are looking for or have found green pastures where they can farm and live off the grid. And I feel like we can live without the social media, but we still have the opportunity to live and serve. And each of us came down to this world with a purpose, and to withdraw and be isolated with only a few people, and my goats and my cranberries and carrots or whatever you're making is wonderful if you just want to stay by yourself and not really fulfill that purpose.
Yeah, but
So,
after a while, I feel like I was just doing some gardening, and I was just like, yo, like I don't want to be doing this forever. I just don't
yeah,
want to just be gardening, and I love my plants and everything, and I love tending to the, working the land, but there has to be, and I feel like that engine analogy you gave earlier, that's really the way we're supposed to live. I
exactly.
think that's how we're supposed to live with our plants as well, and other insects. I feel like it starts to snowball at a certain point. Can you talk about how that has happened in your life and how things just tend to work out?
Yeah, well, I would say that I love the idea of organic farming and living off the land. In fact, that's a huge part of what I believe our future holds. But it's the energy. I call the campaign around my work "Systems Busters," and I speak to a lot of people who are interested in what I do and how I got to where I am, and and they look at it and they say, "Wow, that's so cool!" But I'm so busy. I have family to support. I have this job, or I have this, and I say to them, look, it's not about what you're doing. It's who you're being. And when I don't have to go to Houston in order to help heal the people in Houston, because this is an energetic plane, and I'm an energetic being. And when I am sending in my love vibration with a conscious way. It doesn't mean I don't also can take physical action, but I can act without having to, be there. I just don't hope. You actually send in the vibration. I can support the message. There's a lot of things that I can do. So you can be anywhere and be doing that. And everybody's called to a different level of service. I'm not going to tell everybody to go drop everything and live with people and work to get their messages out through film and video and speaking. Everyone's got a different purpose, and within their space, they can have a massive impact on the world. And when you realize what that purpose is and you begin to live it, yes, then again, that's when the adventure really begins, because most of us are caught up with an idea or possibilities of life. We want to think about it. My dad always used to make us or suggest to us to do lists. Give me the pros and cons. And we're always doing the pros and cons with our different strategies in the beginning of the year or our birthday or these different moments. We get together and strategize our 1 year and 3 year and 5 year plan and all this stuff. Well, it doesn't matter how much control you think you have. You really don't have any control.
Yeah.
And the Mother Earth or Great Spirit or Creator or whoever can quickly flip that situation upside down. So I through getting flipped upside down many times and traveled and stretching myself out in many ways, have come to a point where I live off of that guidance and off of what I perceive, what I feel in my body is the thing to do and how to serve. And I got to a point where I could hear or feel that guidance on pretty much everything that's going on within my life. And that took really, I hope I'm answering your question here. I'm getting around to it. That took continual risk taking and assessment and willingness to be wrong and willingness to fall on my face And that's how I learned languages as well, the willingness to just keep blabbing away, even though I didn't know what I was talking about, or I didn't understand what people were saying to me. And so being you quickly see that the things that I mentioned, that we really don't have control, and that our life really gets going when we've identified our purpose. We get out of act one of our life movie and we move into act two. And sometimes you may be called to the front lines, and sometimes we may be called to pray from the back lines, or send financial support, or send some other sort of assistance, make contacts for people. But until we realize that we are here to do a purpose and we are all connected, then you're just missing out, basically, on the grand adventure.
Yeah.
And the chance to really learn how to, love unconditionally and receive love unconditionally, which I also feel are main points of being on this planet.
That's well said. I was just thinking that, we have our we have our phase one, and we have our phase two, and then we have the in between time, and that is where we can choose to live in that in between time and extend that out for as long as we'd like to as well. And I kind of find myself in those in between times. That way, I'm not thinking about a locked phase or a locked point. And I find I can, when I travel, I'll save money, and I'll just, in 2011, I just saved money and I just traveled with everything. And I didn't think about what I was gonna do, when I got back home. And I find myself in those different scenarios. And then 2016 was the opposite. I didn't travel. I just stayed within the country, and I was just donating and showing support. Did you see that documentary, A Vision for Standing Rock?
Is that the one they put on Netflix?
It was put out. No, it was put out independently by this. It was called like an indigenous. There's like an indigenous. Hold on. A Vision from Standing Rock. That was the name of it. I bought it for like I rented it for $1, and they're like doing these pretty cool startup movies where they're doing a totally grassroots form of distribution method. Hold on, A Vision for. I believe it's called A Vision from Standing Rock. Yeah, and I'll put the link.
Dream from Standing Rock.
Dream. Yeah, I think so. Did you see that one?
I think that's the one that's on. That they what? I think that's the one they put on Netflix. Awake, A Dream from Standing Rock.
Yeah, Awake. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I did see that. Yeah.
That was pretty gritty. That was a gritty one, especially at the end. And I feel like with that particular topic, it can be extremely chargy, because it's considering it's these things are. When I watched it, I was just reveling at the. I have much reverence for the directors and how they got in there, and what they're doing, but I saw that within that was more of a. It was more of a show, A, and B. They're not coming from the causal factor. They're coming from a very. It's very topical. It's very. It's deceivingly topical. So you have a scenario where, you're treating the disease, but you treat the symptoms and not the cause, kind of like the pharmaceutical industry. And that's what I felt like when I was watching it, because there's 30, 40 other oil companies creating pipelines as we speak. And all we need to do is we're voting with our dollar. That's the thing that, I feel like money is becoming a lot of the focus these days, in terms of what are we going to do moving forward? How are we going to, what is as a generation, what is our economic identity? I can really feel, people just trying to suction cup an economic identity around, a historical identity around this generation. And it's just an interesting time to do heart-centered service, because when that happens, people will start looking at you untrustingly, thinking that oh, you have an agenda. Oh, you have this. Oh, you have a certain way about you. Or oh, you should be, doing better for yourself, or you should be, working harder for yourself, or and all of that. And it's just interesting when you have that one to one with the planet, and you realize that this is your journey, this is your time. You have your purpose is what you've known before you've come and had this experience from birth. So it's ultimately about maintaining that integrity and then trusting. A huge insight that I had is just not having repetitive thoughts, but maybe having a thought that refers to the first time that you set the intention or that you set the wish out there, just so that you can have that self respect, as opposed to repeating certain thoughts or mantras or anything. And that's been a deep insight for me, because it takes you right back to the origin. If you said the wish in a certain frequency or vibration that wasn't fully in it, you would know it, but you'll go back to it, and you can put your all into it. And yeah, I was definitely sending healing energies to Houston. And but yeah, it's just having going from that leap. There's a lot of ego that we face. That's pretty that can be pretty massive, going from heart-centered living. But the rewards are, they're of course they depend on how deep into it you embody yourself. It's like what you said before, putting your toe in the water is okay, but eventually it's going to require a full commitment, a full delve in, and there's going to be risk involved, but ultimately you'll be okay, whatever happens. And I've just been having this but there does come a time after the first jump where you see, like, you feel like you've already made the jump, but you realize there's another jump waiting there. Have you ever had that moment where
Oh,
it's just
yeah. They don't stop.
yeah,
They continue. So you think you get to one place, and then you get, you're seeing the next jump there. So no one should expect to get anywhere. And that's, I talk to people, and I still coach people and help people out. And a lot of people say, oh, I'm not where you're at, or I'm not there yet. I'm still a work in progress. And I want to say, look, I'm still a work in progress. There's nowhere to get to, but there is a journey to be taken. And only when we begin to step on that journey, and when we trust that that is why we are here, to take that journey, then it really gets interesting. So it's really about the trust. And I find in the spiritual communities that I've seen, I know a lot of really talented, connected people, and it's still not, we're still not living like spiritual beings. We're living like human beings, because if we really believed and lived like the things that we say, such as we are all one, or this is an energetic plane, then we would live totally differently. But I think that it's also about building up that trust. And I had the opportunity to do a lot of personal work, and then get tested and build up the trust to see that, wow, I actually am a spiritual being having a human existence.
yeah,
And all of these things that came before, then none of them were bad. All of the distractions, all of the different pathways and jobs and countries and people, they were just training me and preparing me for this lifetime of service and this amazing adventure. And I trust that it will be taken care of. And when I live heart forward and not trying to have some amazing Indiana Jones like adventure or command the things that I have to do, just say, okay, Spirit, you just tell me where I need to go, and I'll go. You just show me what needs to be done, and I'll do it. And really step into that 100%, that without fear, without worrying, people constantly remind you, well, you should be making, earning money and putting it in the bank and saving up. And like how, what are you going to do next, and where are you going to live, and how is this, and why are you doing so much stuff for free, and you know, uh, you have to. Those are all patterns and things that society has told us, and fears they've put in our head. There's not enough, and you can't serve without making a lot of money first, or getting famous first, or
There's a
checking
lot
all
of,
these other boxes off. But that's
yeah.
the trust, and that's when we take the path of trust, even if we're not at 100%, then beautiful things will be out there for us. Beautiful mountains to climb, but amazing views from the top.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just I'm just seeing that, when you have gratitude, when people talk about gratitude writing and things of that nature, you have to trust that gratitude, or else it's going to be effective, because it's still a vibration of that word, of that frequency, but you have to trust it. And I feel like that's when you can have your bootstrap, or your hammock of beginning that process of stepping into heart-centered service. um yeah.
I
I
mean,
see
hey,
that.
when it comes to service, it doesn't mean that everything has to be left behind. Again, somebody's service. We need people who are pursuing their purpose within every industry, within every city, with all kinds of different backgrounds. Because
Yeah,
it's not like everyone's going to get totally out of what we perceive as an earth life and serve like a yogi wandering from city to city, a little bit like me. We need people in the networks and oil companies and the military and in the fashion companies and in the places where they can help make those shifts and allow the ideas to come forward that are going to help shift within. So it's really about having the trust that you can serve, and then be awaiting the response, asking and waiting the response. Response may be you're in the exact right place you need to be. However, we need to change our perspective about how we do it and what our objectives are within the space that we're in. And so for us not to have people on the outside, not to judge people just because they work in certain ministries or institutions, is very important, to allow those people to move forward in those spaces and help crack open things from the inside.
and I feel like a lot of the things that begin to do that is changing a very well grooved awareness pattern that's already there about a certain industry or a certain group of people or corporation, and creating, like, that's why I love directors' perspective, because they can take a well grooved perspective and flip it and make it a creative vision that everyone can see and actually feel in their bodies, and it actually frees something up in them without them really getting it and knowing it, but the director knows what's happening the whole way through. And that's a role that we each have the responsibility of owning. And that's why I feel like directors are some of my favorite people just to look at and just to hear speak, because it's that service. That's real service right there that they're doing. They're not even speaking about it. They're in flow. They're circulating, and they're just. But at the same time, it's pretty amazing what they do. That's. Does that resonate with you in any way? The awareness pattern shifts.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's it's a, it's going to be different for everyone. I feel like I can relate my experience and my observations, um, but ultimately, I encourage people to, I say, look, I'm taking on this work, but most important journey is to start looking within and just take on your work, because I can't do, even though I try to do a lot of different things, and I've been able to do the filming and the work that I've done largely by myself to this point. Filmmaking is a group exercise, and we need we need everybody to just do their part in the kind of earth film. And um, and everybody has psychic abilities, everybody has creative abilities, everybody has a power capacity beyond what they imagine. And I tell folks, look, I hope that I can inspire you to trust in the way that you need to trust and do the exploration and ask the questions that you need to ask so that you could also have the experience that you're meant to have for yourself, because it's supposed to be this wonderful chance to participate in this game of life. And everybody has an individual experience to have it when we live our individual experience to the fullest. When we find that purpose and find what instrument we're to play in this global orchestra, then things get interesting. And we need as many people as possible to find their notes and find their rhythm and find their instrument so that we can all make amazing music together.
Exactly. And it's about, I feel like it's about reflecting on different past parts of yourself that you need to help recreate something that worked before, and without judgment or without kind of letting everything go. Because I find, even with something as simple as my hair growing, just I didn't even know that I was gonna have locks. They just did this on their own. So I have to remember what patterns and habits I was doing to sustain it going further. I can't just be like, I have this hair now, and I don't need to go back to what I was doing before. It's just gonna stay like how it was. And when I started going back into that, reflecting and remembering and looking at it again, it really ended up showing more progress moving forward and giving me more stability moving forward. Yeah, I had something that oh yes. So I've had, some states give vaccines, some states don't give vaccines. An awareness pattern example I just wanted to show is you have the people that are paying their bills using, these, big, the pharmacy people. And I have a lot of great people that, that we're talking with and actually around that are in the, that have family members in the pharmaceutical industry. And so I'm just seeing this victim tyrant scenario happening with, big pharma and energy work, and the two having different polarities. And it's I'm coming into this oneness state of um, seeing the pharmaceutical industry as real people, uh, as opposed to just like robots or people that are just not good people. And that was an awareness pattern for me that was just tough to get to. I had another insight around that I wanted to add, but the victim tyrant mentality, and it was like it went one step further, just around how I don't know. I just completely forgot what I was gonna get into with that, but what the point of it was. But that's a point where awareness pattern needs to shift. And yeah, I've just been seeing how we can move forward, and in terms of heart centered, service around the pharmaceutical industry and the people that actually work within each industry. Like I was actually thinking of a funny thought of, I like to sing. I have a SoundCloud channel, and it's just completely raw. I record almost every day now, and that's just from the heart. That's just, that's my service to myself in a way, so that I know that these melodic concepts in my mind exist. And I was seeing myself working at a bakery, but then my manager allowing me, if I have like a concept that strikes me like lightning, to go into like a little back of a bakery and just, let it rip for like a good 3 minutes and then get back to work, whenever I need. So I feel like it's these things as we go forward, as we go somewhere else. We're not getting to a specific destination. It's always as we move on, as we gently row our boat down the stream, and just kind of shifting our awareness pattern. I feel like that's a lot of movie ideas like that coming to my mind, and that's essentially where I like to, be in my vision studio and just have my ideas and just write them all out, maybe even put them into a song, and just somehow have create this library, this vision library of multiple creations that are just you know mine to refine, to put out or not put out or keep in, or you know collaborate with someone like you on, and maybe make a double, maybe we can have a super collaboration of something that we thought was so private, but in actuality is as public can get,
You know it. Well,
Yeah.
I think I just want to mention something around that, because you mentioned the pharmaceutical companies, and that just as easily could be people's opinions about the police, oil companies, or whomever. And I think the first step towards moving into the heart is seeing those people with compassion, and that they're just trying the best they can. That doesn't mean dark doesn't exist in the world, but our judgment of that is what all of us can immediately change. As soon as I stop judging the people for the decisions they're making and the jobs that they're holding and the behaviors that they're doing, and just love them because they're also connected to me. And I can drop those judgments. That's getting out of my head. Oh, you did right, you did wrong, this is bad, you're messing things up, and just see them for the innocent soul that they are. That's the first service that everybody can do. And if we were to see those folks with compassion, and not judge them, world would be a different place immediately before we even left the room. Things could change, and so people get attached to these ideas of, well, all these people are bad and all this, and that's number one. That's the first service. We have to serve first by going into the heart before we can serve from the heart. We have to go into it and see, not jump over our opinions about people and say, well, this is a bad industry, but I'm going to love them anyway, and shove down this anger. No, it's really to see the innocence inside, and that person doesn't know any better, or is stuck for some reason, and so I'm going to just send that person love and not judgment. And that's where it all begins. And then from there, we can begin to see how, if we're called to a certain area, I recommend to people say, look, what do you feel called to? What area, what group of people, what issue, what theme it calls to you, or what experiences have you had in your life already? What were the biggest challenges that you had to face? What group of people do you know best because you came from there, or you're persecuted by them? And those are the keys to assessing what service is most in alignment with our purpose. Those are the ways that we can step forward and on the path and into the heart. It's really starts with us. We don't have to guess and just try to just look at ourselves. Where are we stuck? What's blocked us? Resolve that, and then help others do the same.
Yep. Yeah. It's referring. You're right. Just like how I was saying, don't repeat the mantra. Refer to that first time you said it. Refer to that origin, source, center point to where they came into existence. Refer to them as that. And yes, that sparked something in my heart just now. I just felt huge opening in the back of my left shoulder blade. I just feel syrup, honey, dew. It feels great.
Beautiful.
So is there anything else you'd like to add as we wrap up here?
I would just say that I have a lot more on the way. I have both. I have social media channels both for myself, Michael Matucci, Matucci, and then I have the campaign called Systems Busters. That's plural, Systems Busters, which is the positive side of what people are doing, led by Indigenous people and Indigenous wisdom, are doing to help positively transform their communities to assist in this global positive shift and I welcome everyone to join in. It's not about me, and nor is the movie that I'm bringing forth that is related to this campaign, Systems Busters, about me. It's about bringing people together. It's about showing how powerful we can be, and that's why the indigenous people are so important. They can show us more what we're like as human beings and what we can be in peaceful and harmonious communities, and as well as how we can how we can learn from their history and our history and move forward together. And it will be coming together. So I'm just playing my instrument in the orchestra, and I welcome people to join me on Facebook and YouTube and on Instagram by offering their comments, by offering their information and their heart-centered service and examples of people who are busting the system in their own way, and hopefully we grow a community that empowers each other to move through our individual blocks and also be the most powerful lights in our communities. So I just say, go ahead and join me and reach out and participate in or observe and enjoy.
It was a blessing to have you, and it was a blessing to be with you. I want to talk to you after. I'm going to stop the broadcast. We can talk for a second afterwards. I just, I really am grateful to have met you. You're a present person. I have the utmost respect for what it is that you do and the direction that you're going in. So we're just going to end this broadcast. I'm going to talk to you a little bit after. So
great, thanks.